Rain slashed across the empty highway as thunder rolled in the distance, turning the night into a restless sea of sound. Lily stumbled through the downpour, her breath ragged, her heart pounding like a drum against her ribs. She could barely see where she was going, but she knew she couldn't stop, not now, not when he was so close behind her. Damon's voice still echoed in her mind, cruel and venomous, promising she'd never escape him again. The memory of his hand around her wrist burned like fire on her skin. Her shoes slapped against the wet pavement, every step splashing cold water up her legs, but she didn't care. She had to keep moving. The flickering lights of a gas station appeared up ahead, a beacon of hope in the storm. Her soaked hair clung to her face as she ran toward it, praying anyone would help her. But the station was empty, silent except for the hum of a vending machine and the soft hiss of rain against the metal roof. Her chest tightened in panic. Then, through the blur of rain, she saw it, a sleek black car idling by the edge of the lot, its headlights cutting through the darkness like twin daggers. Without thinking, she bolted toward it. Her trembling hands grasped the handle, and to her relief it opened. She slipped inside, slamming the door shut and gasping for air. "Please," she whispered, voice breaking. "Please."
"I just need to hide for a moment. The
man in the driver's seat didn't turn right away. The low rumble of the engine filled the silence between them. When he finally did glance over his shoulder, Lily froze. His sharp features were illuminated by the dim dashboard light. Strong jaw, cold eyes, a face that looked both dangerous and beautiful. His tailored black suit clung perfectly to his broad shoulders, and a faint scar traced the line of his cheek. "You picked the wrong car, sweetheart," he said in a voice that was low, steady and unsettlingly calm. Lily's pulse stuttered. "Please, I'm begging you," she stammered. "My ex, he's coming. I just need to stay here until—" The sound of another car screeching into the lot made her flinch. She ducked low in the seat, pressing herself against the cold leather, her breath quick and shallow. Through the rain-streaked window, she saw Damon get out, scanning the area like a predator. The man behind the wheel watched him, eyes narrowing, every muscle in his body suddenly alert. Without a word, he shifted the car into gear. The tires spun on the wet ground before catching traction, and the vehicle surged forward into the storm. Lily turned toward him in shock. "What are you doing?" she cried. His jaw flexed. "Keeping you alive." Her heart pounded, louder than the rain as the car tore through the night, city lights blurring past. She didn't know who this stranger was, but something in the way he spoke, controlled, certain, dangerous, told her she had just escaped one nightmare only to fall into another. The car cut through the storm like a blade, its engine growling low and powerful as it devoured the wet asphalt. Lily clutched the seatbelt with trembling hands, her breath fogging the window as the world outside became a blur of gray and neon. The man beside her didn't say a word. His focus was absolute, hands steady on the wheel, gaze fixed on the road ahead. The silence inside the car was thick, broken only by the rhythmic thud of the windshield wipers and Lily's shaky breathing. She dared to look at him, his face calm but unreadable, eyes glinting like steel beneath the glow of the dashboard. There was something terrifying about how composed he was, as if nothing could rattle him, not even a desperate stranger crashing into his life. "You can drop me off anywhere," she said finally, her voice barely more than a whisper. "Please, I'll be fine." His lips twitched, not quite a smile, more like a dark amusement. "You think I'm letting you out in the middle of the city while he's still looking for you?" She blinked in confusion. "You saw him?" "Of course I saw him," he replied, his tone calm but edged with something sharper. He looked like a man who's used to getting what he wants, the kind of man who doesn't like to be told no. Her throat tightened. He wasn't wrong. Damon's temper was a storm she'd lived through too many times. "You don't understand," she murmured. "If he finds me again—" "He won't," the man interrupted, glancing at her briefly before turning back to the road. His voice carried a quiet authority, the kind that made her want to believe him even though she didn't know his name. "What's your name?" she asked, clutching her coat tighter around herself. "Nikolai," he said after a pause. "And you?" "Lily." He nodded once as if filing it away. The car slowed as they reached a red light, the rain drumming softly against the hood. For a moment, the air between them changed, less tense, more curious. "Why were you out there alone?" he asked. Lily hesitated. "Because I had nowhere else to go," she said truthfully. "He took everything, my money, my phone, my life. I just ran." Nikolai's gaze lingered on her reflection in the mirror, taking in the fear behind her eyes, the bruise faintly visible beneath her makeup. Something flickered in his expression, gone before she could read it. "You ran into the right car tonight," he said finally, his tone quiet but certain. She frowned, not sure what he meant. The city lights stretched across the horizon like scattered jewels, reflections rippling through the wet streets as Nikolai's car cut through the darkness. Inside, the air was thick with silence, heavy and tense. Lily sat rigidly in the passenger seat now, her fingers twisting the hem of her coat. She was still shivering, but she wasn't sure if it was from the cold or from the man sitting next to her. Nikolai's presence filled the space effortlessly, steady, composed and unbothered by the chaos that had just unfolded. The low rumble of the engine vibrated beneath her feet, an anchor in a world that had spun completely out of control. "Where are you taking me?" she finally asked, her voice cautious, uncertain. "Somewhere safe," he said simply, not looking at her. "I don't even know who you are," she murmured. "And yet you got in my car," he replied, a hint of irony in his tone. She pressed her lips together. "I didn't have a choice." His dark eyes flicked toward her for a moment, sharp and assessing. "People always have a choice," he said, voice low, almost philosophical. "They just don't always like the price." Lily turned to the window, raindrops chasing one another down the glass. She wanted to argue, but she didn't have the strength. Every part of her was drained, body, heart, soul. "He's going to find me," she whispered finally. "Damon doesn't give up." "He won't find you," Nikolai said again, this time with finality. There was no doubt in his tone, no hesitation. It wasn't a promise, it was a statement of fact. Something about that certainty sent a strange warmth through her chest, though she quickly pushed it away. "You talk like you're used to making people disappear," she said quietly. His lips curved into the faintest smirk. "You could say that." The air in the car shifted. The truth in his words was unmistakable. A flash of memory returned to Lily. The headlines she'd seen on TV, the whispered rumors about a man who controlled half the city from the shadows. The name Moretti. Her stomach dropped. "Wait," she breathed, glancing at him again. "Your name, Nikolai Moretti?" He didn't answer, but his silence was confirmation enough. Her pulse spiked. "Oh my God," she whispered, pulling back slightly in her seat. You're the one they say a lot of things," he cut in smoothly, his tone unreadable, most of them true. She stared at him, unsure whether to be terrified or relieved. She had escaped her abusive ex only to end up with the man people whispered about in fear, the one who made criminals vanish and debts disappear overnight. And yet looking at him, she didn't see cruelty. The car turned off the main road, gliding down a winding path lined with tall cypress trees swaying in the wind. The rain had slowed to a mist, the air thick with the scent of wet earth and pine. Lily leaned forward slightly, peering through the windshield. Ahead loomed an iron gate, massive and ornate, guarded by two men in dark coats. They stepped aside the moment they saw Nikolai, pressing a button that made the gate creak open in silence. The car rolled through and into a different world, grand, isolated, and unsettlingly beautiful. The mansion that came into view looked more like an ancient fortress than a home, its stone walls glistening under the faint moonlight. "Where are we?" Lily asked, her voice trembling. "My place," Nikolai said calmly as he parked near the entrance. He stepped out, walked around to her side, and opened the door. "Come on, you need to dry off." She hesitated. Every instinct told her not to trust him, yet something in his tone made refusal impossible. The moment they entered the mansion, warmth enveloped her. The interior was dimly lit, elegant but cold, marble floors, towering ceilings, and portraits of men who all seemed to share the same unyielding eyes as Nikolai. He handed her a towel without a word, his movements efficient, almost detached. "There's a room upstairs you can use," he said. "Fresh clothes will be brought to you." She stared at him. "Why are you helping me?" He looked at her for a long moment before answering. "Because I don't like men who hurt women." His voice was quiet, but edged with something sharp, something dangerous. Before she could respond, a door swung open across the hall. A tall man in black entered quickly, rain dripping from his coat. "Boss," he said, his tone urgent, "we've got a situation. A guy's been circling the perimeter asking questions, says he's looking for his wife." Lily's blood ran cold. Damon, her heart began to race, her vision blurring. "He found me," she whispered, her voice cracking. Nikolai's expression darkened instantly. He made a mistake coming. Here? The calmness in his voice was far more frightening than anger. He turned to his man. Take care of it. No one comes past the gate. Then his gaze returned to her, steady and deliberate. You're safe here, he said softly. I promise. She wanted to believe him, but she could feel the danger in his every word, like a fire hidden beneath ice. As he disappeared down the corridor, Lily stood alone in the grand hall, surrounded by silence that felt heavier than any storm. She realized she had escaped one kind of prison only to enter another. One, ruled by power, secrets, and a man who could destroy her world with a single command. Lily stood by the tall window, her hands trembling as she parted the heavy velvet curtains. Outside, the world was drowned in darkness. The rain had stopped, leaving behind a slick sheen. Over the driveway where the mansion's guards stood in silence, their shadows shifted under the dim glow of the lamps, and in the distance a pair of headlights appeared, Damon's car. Her heart leapt to her throat. He's here, she whispered, backing away from the glass. The fear that had haunted her for months returned in an instant, wrapping around her like cold chains. Before she could move, the door opened behind her. Nikolai stepped inside, his presence filling the room effortlessly. He didn't look surprised. I know, he said quietly. He's at the gate. You have to let me go, she pleaded. If he sees me here, he'll hurt you too. Nikolai's lips curved slightly, though there was no humor in the gesture. No one hurts me, he said, and no one lays a hand on what's under my protection. His words made her freeze. Under your protection? She echoed, uncertain if it was reassurance or a claim. But before she could ask, a gunshot shattered the silence outside. Lily flinched, covering her ears. The sound echoed through the hallways like thunder. Then came shouting, quick and sharp, followed by the roar of engines and the heavy thud of a door slamming shut. Nikolai didn't move from where he stood, his face expressionless. A few moments later, the front door opened downstairs. One of his men entered, rain dripping from his coat. It's done, he said simply. Nikolai nodded once, dismissing him. Lily's knees weakened. What does that mean? She asked, her voice breaking. He looked at her steadily, the weight of his gaze impossible to escape. It means he won't find you again, he said. The certainty in his tone left no room for misunderstanding. She swallowed hard, tears blurring her vision. You killed him? She whispered. He didn't answer, and somehow that silence said more than words ever could. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the steady ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner, each second stretching endlessly. When she finally found her voice again, it was soft, almost fragile. Why? She asked. You don't even know me. Nikolai's expression shifted. Just slightly, something human flickering beneath the steel. Because no one should have to live in fear, he said simply. Then with a quiet sigh, he turned toward the door. Get some rest. You're safe now. When he left, the room felt colder without him. Lily sank into the armchair, her heart still racing, unsure if she should cry, scream, or thank him. Outside, the storm had ended, and the moon broke through the clouds, bathing the world in silver light. For the first time in years, she wasn't running, but she knew deep inside. Peace with a man like Nikolai Moretti would never come without a price.